Welcome back to the Wild Ones podcast, the show where we chat about bike stuff. I'm Jimmy, and this week I am joined by producer Emily.
Hello.
And Nick the mechanic.
Hello.
I was looking forward to getting my studded tyres out this week because we were predicted 13 hours of snow, allegedly 15 centimetres, and in true northeastern fashion, the weather got downgraded significantly and there was just a little splattering. So it was actually fine. I was looking forward to some snow riding.
I know, I thought we were all going to go out after this and do some skids in the car park.
Why in the car park?
I don't know.
I'm still setting a set of wheels up today with them on, just so I've got it ready. Because I think it takes... The problem is that it says like it's going to snow the night before and then it changes last minute. So
Presumably you can use studded tyres.
you can ride them normally as well. They're just noisy.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you tomorrow.
Thanks. Please do.
Is anything else exciting been happening? Well, you guys were at Rouleau, weren't you?
Yes. So first of all, not an ad. I paid for my tickets, Ruler. I'm going to mention a couple of brands because I thought they were actually quite interesting. No one there has asked for advertising or anything like that. This is not an advert.
Okay, good disclaimer.
I invited the audience to chat to me on social media, LinkedIn, etc., and the podcast, and I spoke to so many people. It was absolutely mint. I loved it. Got loads of selfies. I think that, for me, that is actually the best bit about it. Getting the opportunity to have a chat with some of you, the audience, was absolutely lovely, and I want to do more of it.
Nice.
So I was chatting to a guy. I don't know his name. Hopefully he'll be listening to this, and you go, "Oh, that was me." He said to me, "Have you seen anything good that I should check out?" And my response was, "Not really. It's all the same. It's just more expensive." And then he raised me and he said, "Actually, you need to check out this bike brand called Silca. I've never heard of them before. They're actually a Chinese bike brand." And I went over, had a look, and I was surprised. They look good. The paint on them is good. It's T40. No, it's actually not. It's a BSA threaded BB, which seems to be the new thing now, moving backwards from T47 for threaded. That is right, isn't it?
Yes. My only concern with that, I think, is due to aesthetic purposes. T47 works better, but BSA...
Smaller shell.
Smaller shell, so then your crank arms don't overshadow... hides the BB to some extent.
Yeah. So this brand, Chinese brand, the paint on them looked amazing. They've got a Trek style cutout on the down tube. They're aero tested by our mates at Aero Coach, which I wasn't aware of until I went onto the Silca's website. The price point is coming in, I think, was about £2,500, which is obviously a lot of money, but it looks on the surface like it's a bike that's as good as the stuff that's out there for £4,000.
That's for a frame set?
For a frame set, yeah.
Okay, not cheap, but...
Well, of course it's not cheap, but...
competitive in...
thousands of pounds cheaper than the competition, potentially. I think the interesting conversation here is there was Silca there was EXS carbon.
I really like that stuff.
Handlebars and wheels and things like that. There was another clothing brand there. There was also a secret Ruler meeting of business people before the Friday session at 10 in the morning. It was an invitation-only thing that Matteo, the guy that owns Ruler and a load of other brands, advertised on his LinkedIn. I tried to go and I asked for an entry to it and I didn't get a reply. So once again, they didn't let me into something. And the whole conversation that they were having their secret meeting about was China. And something that I am noticing, also talking to PR agencies, is everyone is now obsessed with China. The Chinese cycling market is booming. Lots of big brands are now going, well, the West is slowing down. Where's our opportunity for growth? And they're all now looking at how they can grow in China.
So from a market perspective, rather than necessarily just factories, they're actually looking at where can we sell?
Correct, yes.
Interesting.
Well, the problem is these factories are making everybody else's bikes. Colnago V4RS, Argon 18, a lot of bikes are made in these factories while they make their own bikes as well. So essentially, I think what they're trying to do is show people that, I mean, we know what we're doing, but we don't have our brand out there yet.
But I don't actually think it's that. I think the change is there's a massive cycling boom in China specifically. So there is a very, very big international retail brand that I'm not sure if I can publicly say it, but their bikes are sold more in China than anywhere else in the world. And they're astronomically huge. And therefore, if their biggest sales are in China, then it's really showing that the Chinese cycling market is huge. And as I said, because the West seems to be slowing, it's very stale, lots of brands are having difficulty, they're going to I feel like what we're going to see a lot of is these brands prioritizing China or transitioning to how they can grow in China over focusing on better stuff in the West.
You hassled me all morning to go and see these guys. I went over, and what I liked about it was that the one nice thing as well is the owner was there, the engineers were there. So you weren't just speaking to somebody from marketing or PR, it's the actual...
This is Silca.
The people actually making the bikes were the ones talking to you. So yeah, it was interesting.
I obviously I can't vouch whether it's actually good, but on the surface, I was impressed. Another one that I thought was quite good, Francis wanted me to check this out, is a helmet brand called Vontet, I think they said it's pronounced.
Tet like head. I'm assuming.
Oh, is that what it is?
Tet is head in French. Vent would be like ventilation, maybe.
Is it?
Airhead?
Oh, wait there. It was something to do with like, yes, it is something like that, like wind head or something like that. It's basically an inflatable commuter helmet that's really expensive. Well, I say it's really expensive. They've been developing it for 10 years. It is expensive. I think it's €350. But considering they've just launched this product and they've spent a lot of money on it, I would have expected it. I thought it was going to be €500 rather than 350, and the price will definitely come down.
But how does that work? Do they make other stuff? Because if you developed something for 10 years, you're paying for engineering fees and all these things for 10 years before you bring it to market.
The two founders are the engineers.
Okay.
And I think by the sounds of it, they've had a lot of external investment from lots of big businesses, probably because it's commuter market and therefore it's huge in comparison to road or just mountain biking. You know, there's a lot of people that ride bikes as part of their life and perhaps don't want to lug around a big fat helmet and want to be able to stuff it in somewhere a bit smaller. It's an interesting product. Is it going to change the world? Probably not, but it does feel like it's different, and it's nice to see something that's different. Should we get into some news?
Yes, let's. So, firstly, the YouTuber formerly known as the Vegan Cyclist is officially now a criminal. And those are his words. Let me explain. So, Tyler Pierce, who used to go by the Vegan Cyclist, but has since rebranded to VC Adventures, this week revealed he's now got a criminal record and even faced going to jail, all for riding his bike on a path.
Hey, VC here, and I am a criminal. That's why I've been offline for a little while, as I officially booked into the system into the U.S. Marshal's office as a criminal, a misdemeanor for riding my bicycle off-road.
It was all because of a video that he uploaded which showed him cycling on a walking path in Yosemite National Park, which is near his home in California. He says it was a genuine mistake. He'd not ridden that route before. He got caught off guard and it took him 5 or 10 seconds to realise he was on a walking path, at which point he got off his bike and walked. He didn't think he'd caused any harm, so he posted the video. And then 8 months later, he got a letter telling him that he had to go to court. And he was being accused of riding off-road in a prohibited area and was facing a maximum penalty of 6 months in jail and a $5,000 fine, which is the maximum.
Yep.
But that's still a scary thing to hear. So he claims that the park wanted to make an example of him because his videos are watched by hundreds of thousands of people who may be encouraged to copy him. And he says the prosecutors went in hard. They pulled up every Strava post he'd ever done, every caption he'd ever made, every video. And he says he was genuinely worried that he'd face jail time. He said, "My heart sunk. The fear was real. I've never had to stare at my freedom before." So that was a new experience. He eventually pled guilty to a misdemeanor, which is just a US legal speak for a minor offence. And he was eventually handed a 3 months ban from the park, 12 months probation, and a $350 fine. He also had to remove all content related to the offence and says his content is now being monitored closely.
Do you think if he didn't have a big online following that he would have been prosecuted?
At all?
Well, how would they have
Well,
known?
they wouldn't have known, no.
So you feel someone's grassed him up here, haven't they?
5 to 10 seconds though is ridiculous. I mean, you've ridden the trail, yes, but 5 to 10 seconds, how far did you get? How fast was he riding?
100 kilometers an hour.
The prosecutors basically argued that the content was way more dangerous than the activity itself, as it could encourage others to do the same. They were trying to paint a picture of that he was illegally advertising ways to get into the park too. He basically, in this video, he goes in through, I think it's like a fire road. I'm assuming you have to pay to get into this park. But he went in through a fire road, which is not illegal, but it's very frowned upon. You can only do it if you have an annual pass to the park, which he has. But I guess they were trying to paint a picture that he was showing loopholes and misusing the park. But his defense was, this is just where I live. This is where I'm raising my family. It was a genuine mistake. I love the park. I use the park a lot. Like, this is my home. Like, I don't know. I think they were trying to make it out like it was incredibly malicious. And while he took responsibility for what he did, I don't think that it was malicious.
In some respects, it does kind of feel like the more influence should have higher repercussions.
Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But I suppose it comes down to what if what you're showing is inciting someone to do something versus making a mistake. They're very different things, aren't they?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but how do you prove it first? And secondly, you can't just punish people more because they're more famous. The law is the law. It should be balanced.
It's maybe an aggravating factor. It's an interesting one, isn't it? His defense apparently said that she'd never seen the park service use so many resources to go so hard on someone. And he says that all the publicity that he'd given the park in the past was turned into a negative. So he had comments on his videos saying, we've traveled from all around the world to visit Yosemite, and the prosecution were using that to show that not only did he have influence, he was bringing people directly into the park and then potentially showing them illegal ways to use it. So I don't know.
Which is cycling on a path for walking.
Yes, for 5 seconds. Allegedly. I haven't seen the video. It's been removed, so... It
does seem way extreme.
It's harsh, isn't it? I mean, he's banned for 3 months. He's probation for 12 months. I think he said now he just got to be good for 10 more months, and then he's free to commit crimes again, I guess. I don't know.
It kind of... Like if he had loads of repeat offences or made the mistake multiple times, then you could see that they'd be like, look, you've done this a few times. We're going to have to go hard on you now.
Surely, warning. You know what I mean? Like, warn the guy.
We don't know that he hasn't previously been warned. That is speculation, of course.
I mean, all of this is speculation. Isn't that what we do best? Yeah, but I mean, he said, I've got a criminal record for riding bikes, and that's pretty gnarly. So it's all worked out fine for him. But it must be quite a nerve-wracking thing to go through.
For sure.
And for his family as well, like not just being in that state of what is going to happen here.
Especially when you think of the stuff that people do that is actually illegal and they don't get into trouble for it.
Well, it's a good job that Nick doesn't have a camera on him capturing all the illegal stuff you do, I think.
He literally knows where every single traffic camera is in the city of Newcastle.
But you can't get around if you don't know.
And he drives all of the roads that you're not meant to drive and never gets tickets because he knows there's not cameras.
Well, no, when you get your ticket, it'll be money well spent.
I was just about to say something which I'm not allowed to say, so we'll leave that there and we should probably move on.
Yeah, I think the moral of this story is if you're going to do illegal stuff, just don't record it.
Next, you might remember a few weeks back, we talked about St. Piran, the UK team that was found to be sticking fake UCI compliance stickers on their bikes. Well, they are back under the spotlight because Cycling Weekly has reported that all riders who want to apply to be on the team have to pay £500 to even be considered. The British Continental team insists that hopefuls fill out an online application and pay £500 for what they call a performance test review. Apparently, this is an analysis of their data in which they provide an in-depth review, signposting strengths and weaknesses. Cycling Weekly claims sources told them that the team manager, Richard Pascoe, has been heard boasting that he made £15,000 in rider applications last year alone when speaking at an industry event.
Ooh.
But a representative for St. Piran said the process was standard practice for teams and that it was introduced because, in their experience, data sources provided directly by riders can be inaccurate. They also said, since the team achieved UCI Continental status, we have been approached by many riders wishing to race for the men's team, adding that this review can be a very useful tool for riders who are not ready for the Conti level yet and signpost areas for them and their coaches to work on. Cycling Weekly also claims to have seen an email in which the team asked riders looking to join the 2025 roster to sign a non-disclosure agreement. However, a spokesman for the team says that they dropped this idea after a strategic review of the 2014 season. Sorry, 2024 season.
Oh dear. It seems to me that someone in St. Piran has made some enemies, and those people are talking to the press. Because these stories continue to come. On the point of this is common practice, I asked a UCI Conti level rider if in their experience it was common practice. They said, in their experience, it's not. I've only heard of a handful of teams that have required testing as part of the application, and they wouldn't have been charging for it. So in their experience, paying £500 to apply to a team isn't commonplace. They said riders in general are being taken advantage of at this level of the sport because there are so few opportunities.
I can see that happening.
Well, yeah, do you know what it feels to me like? It feels to me like the same as other freelance professions that are very sought after, like acting, modelling, singing. You have little representation on your side. There are so few opportunities if you want to really climb that ladder.
It just doesn't feel right.
I agree, it doesn't feel right, but performance tests presumably are expensive and very specific. If it was a case of them saying, this is how much it costs, and with that you get blood work done, you get I don't even know what the performance tests are. I can't guess them. But where you see those photos of people with masks on doing like proper lab tests. If they were actually saying that you're paying money and you were going to get that and it was yours, and then they were also going to use that, then I don't see a total problem with it. Perhaps there's like a subsidy, perhaps they split the cost or something like that.
I can tell you what the description of the test. They have like their own website where you can check out on this performance test review. It says, ever wanted a world-class performance review? Follow in the process and receive the same analysis as the world tour riders. Even if you're a leisure cyclist doing events, personal challenges or races, this is the best investment you can make. It details and benchmarks you against the best and those in St. Piran. It can also lead on to having tailored coaching plans. Complete the performance review process on our website to be considered for rider applications. Requirements include access to your Training Peaks and similar platforms. So actually, there's not much detail of what this includes, whether it's just an analysis of already available data. I'm assuming it's not just that, because the point that they're making is that sometimes your data can be skewed or manipulated, so they want to do some sort of testing. But I think the point that this Conti rider that we spoke to is making is that testing isn't a set protocol for being on an application, and where it is, it's not paid for by the rider. Like, I don't know, part of it feels to me a bit like, you go for a job at Tesco and you put a list of references down and they want to charge you 500 quid to ring around your references and make sure you're not making stuff up. Or like, is the point of scouting and recruiting, is that not part of the job? And could you not find the same thing by just going to race? Like, this is UCI Conti level. There are levels underneath. You could be going to races and scouting. You could be ringing for references from the team bosses of those teams where the people have come from and see it that way. I guess there's going to be scenarios where potentially they're not already picked up, but surely at this level they've been doing some sort of riding before. Yeah, you can see a Palmares already.
You have to go through the riding system, and they all know each other to some extent, and you see people racing, but also this makes cycling really boring, I think. Everything is too numbers driven. If you look back at the Froome era, where he was very good at controlling his efforts and everything was based off power and just precisely planned out, where now you've got Pogacar just doing absolutely wild stuff. It's just, I think it's a lot more entertaining to watch.
Yeah, he's obviously still very focused on numbers, but he often talks about feel. And it feels like that hasn't been around for a while.
I've watched some like Belgian documentaries where they've got behind the scenes, and other teams talk about Mathieu van der Poel, and they say it's just impossible to guess what he's going to do on the day. And he is one of the most exciting riders to watch because it's just nothing is really planned or thought out. And
oh no, I think it is, but it's not by the book.
well, I don't know if it is. I think it's by feel. Like some of them just ride like, I'm feeling good, I'm going to try something. Instead of, if you can ride at this number for this long, you can hold out at this pace. So
looking at the description of what it is, it sounds to me like they are selling performance tests, which I think is completely and utterly fine. Loads and loads of business sell a performance test of some description. Like we said, we don't know what's involved in it, and it perhaps isn't good value for money, or perhaps it is, I don't know. So selling a performance test is completely and utterly fine. Needing it for a rider application, perhaps not.
Well, this is it. I was trying to think from the other side of it. Is there any justification? And I was trying to think, is it the equivalent of needing a specialist qualification to apply for a job?
Well, it does kind of feel a bit like that. For example, an accountant needs a certain qualification. A solicitor, lawyer needs a qualification. So you have to spend money to prove and have a certificate which says something. Obviously, this isn't exactly that.
However, in that scenario, that would be an industry standard and it would apply to any accountancy job that you were going for. Whereas, is this industry standard?
The results perhaps are. So if I had a certificate which said, this is a third-party medical person that has demonstrated that my blood hematocrit is this and my VO2 max is this, then I could, for a very small period of time, use that amongst teams to go, look how good I potentially am.
Yeah, I don't know. It feels somewhat short-sighted because how do you get the best people in your team if you're only picking from the ones that can afford it? It seems like it's narrowing the sights a bit and you're losing some diversity there. But also, I mean, I also understand that generally racing is an expensive sport to get into. The sort of kids that will be getting into this, it's because they have parents that can afford to buy them the bikes and buy them the race passes and buy them entry to the races and all of the other perishables that go with it. So
to some extent, it's the wrong way around as well, though, because the team is saying, like, we are doing you a favor instead of saying, like, well, you're a good rider, we want you in the team so you can help us. I mean, I think some of the World Tour riders are the teams by giving them a Cervelo or a Colnago, doing them a favor, or are they actually doing the team a favor by picking that team and following with their process?
Again, though, I think it just comes down to the shoestring budgets that some of the teams at this level of the sport are operating on, isn't it?
What I can say is, to wrap up this section, I would not personally pay £500 for a performance test review to join a team.
Cool.
Or for a performance test review.
And finally, a viral clip of a cyclist stuffing his fancy carbon wheel set with grass after getting a puncture is making the rounds. I had to include this one because I know you have some experience with it, Jimmy.
I do indeed.
So the clip was shared on an account called Bike Life on Facebook, and it basically shows a lad on a group ride clearly struggling after a puncture. He's pulled over on the side of the road, wheel in hand, just stuffing the tyre with grass. And it was also shared by Road CC, who wrote, unfortunately, or fortunately for those fancy wheels, there's no follow-up footage of the grass tube in use. Just how much grass would you have to get in there to get yourself home? So, Jimmy, I thought you could answer this question for them. How much grass do you need to create an effective grass tube?
So, the background is Francis and myself were riding bikes in the North Pennines. He was on a mountain bike. I was on my gravel bike. It was a gnarly bike ride. It was a big old loop. And I got a puncture. I think I had tube. No, I think it was about the third puncture. No, it was the second puncture of the day. Punctured, tubeless one, failed, didn't work, put a tube in it. Later on, the tube failed, had no other options because there was tube and I didn't have patches. So we thought, well, let's see what happens with grass. I've always wanted to know what happens. Started filling the tyre up. You realise that grass just has no volume to it and just compacts to absolute mush. So we spent absolutely ages. There is a vlog video somewhere on this channel of this happening. Spent ages doing it. It was absolutely freezing. We must have spent 2 hours trying to make this bike work. And every time you ride it, it looks like it's going to do something. And then 10 meters later, it just goes back to mush and you're back on the rim.
Hey? Working?
Technically, yes.
I'm going gonna go and get you an inner tube.
Yes, please.
See you later.
Bye. And then Francis then rode off miles whilst I was walking because it just wasn't rideable to get a tube. Comes back with a tube that didn't fit my bike. So then we tried stuffing all of that in and it didn't work. And then he goes, oh yeah, I do have a Tubolito, but I didn't want to use it because they cost 30 quid.
Did he pay £30 for it?
I doubt it, no.
He doesn't pay for Tubolito. He used to be sponsored by them.
Isn't that outrageous?
What a tight bastard.
What? Like hours? I'm gonna put it down to he wanted the entertainment for the
content.
video.
You know, he sends me a photo almost every day when he comes into the studio of his sandwiches made from home.
So the conclusion is there is no amount of grass you can put into a tyre to be able to ride on it.
I would caveat that, say you can, but by the time you get to that amount of grass, the bike's going to be incredibly heavy. The wheel, yeah.
You won't because you can't. It won't. Trust me, you can't actually try it. And when you actually do it, there's a limit to how much you can fit. It just doesn't go in, and then it just compresses.
Compacts.
Yeah.
Just do what Graham Wells does. He just rides a bike without anything in it and then comes back and his rim's completely shiny. Like his alloy.
Well, I was riding it because it was slightly quicker than walking, but it was road and no, I think we were on a gravel. It was just basically, it was rubbish. It didn't work. It was absolute pants.
I've just been looking at the photos. Those wheels cost £3,500 as well. Oh. So it's not a cheap rim to just be messing about on.
Don't Zip have a don't ask any questions warranty replacement scheme though?
Yes, if you did ride it, they'll just give you new wheels. But yeah, but I think
don't take that as fact. By the way, just don't try this at home.
Even with that warranty, I would put one of them inserts in if you're going to be in the middle of nowhere, because then at least you can still ride it for a short bit.
But you're not. But like the weirdest bit about this picture is it looks like it's a TT bike. There's definitely at least one other bike in the photos.
I can tell you what the issue is going to be is that he's cut his tyre without knowing anything else, just seeing the photos. It's an 858, which is an incredibly deep rim. So there'll be other guys probably with inner tubes or things like that. Nobody will have a valve core that's long enough.
Oh.
Yeah.
I always say, if you're going to have deep wheels, anything beyond a 45mm rim, carry spare valve extenders in your saddlebag. Because trust me, at some point, that's going to save your life. Somebody's got an inner tube with a short little valve core on it. You just screw that on, and you've got a long one. Or you can get some of them where you just have one, screw it on, inflate it, unscrew it, screw it onto the other wheel, and inflate it. Top tip.
That is a top tip.
Yeah. Always make sure you've got them.
Well, in contrast to that top tip, can you think of any other rubbish hacks like putting grass in your wheel if you've got a puncture that are out there that people should definitely not ever try or do?
Oil or butter on your chain. But saying that, I've used olive oil on my chain.
Have you?
Countless times.
Does that work?
For some reason, I never have oil at my house. And then a squeaky chain is the most annoying thing. And all I do is just... our olive oil's got like a little spout thing on it as well. So it's just easy to apply, wipe off the excess. It does work. It's not great.
It'll work for it will work for a bit.
Yeah, but it's just, for me, it's usually a commute.
Yes, exactly.
Get to the shop.
Get a bit of bread at the other side, wipe it off, and then you've got your lunch as well.
Or just mid-ride, yeah.
You make your own balsamic vinegar as you go along.
Oh, God. Sorry, so are we saying these are hacks that don't work or do work?
I wouldn't do it long term. This is
Don't
literally...
try it at home.
I tried, it doesn't work, but yeah, just don't do it.
I've got a good one, and there's this hack for anti-puncturing called tubeless that just never works.
Tubeless works so much better. It's just because you don't know the right stuff. Washing up liquid to wash your bike.
Works perfectly.
No, it doesn't. It
Works
destroys your bike.
perfectly.
No, I'm not like, I'll fight that till my death. Coke bottles cut up as mud guards.
Oh, I've
seen
done
it,
that
but
before.
I've tried it. Like an R saver, essentially. I don't know if I'm cutting it wrong, but I've never gotten it to work.
Yeah, it's not that effective. It's better than Nout, but it's not the most
I can
effective.
understand if you cut it just to seal the hole in the cutout in your saddle.
Yes.
But I can't see it sticking out the back and working.
This isn't a hack, but why are clipless pedals called clipless pedals when you clip into them?
Because I think you used to have the demonstrator with straps and clips, and now you don't have the straps anymore. So like if you think olden days track cycling, you used to have like a cage on the front of the pedal, and I think they must have called them clips. I'm not old enough. Well, I am old, but I'm not old enough to know.
But that doesn't
But I assume
justify
that's why.
calling a clipless pedal. You literally clip where you click into it. It's a stupid name.
You're right. Yeah.
Have we got any others?
It's very difficult to explain to new customers. Like, do you want some clipless? No. Yeah. Because you clip in, but yeah. Lastly, I've been a mechanic for quite a while. I've tried this. It doesn't work. I don't know if I'm doing it wrong, but that old hack with old Campag and quite a few other things, if you needed like a 10mm Allen key, what you do is you use a 4mm and a 6mm or two 5mm and put them together. That makes 10mm to turn. But the issue with it is that I've noticed is you need a lot of torque and it just doesn't work. It slips. But yeah, there's a lot of people swear by it. I haven't seen it. Also, try and get the two multi-tools together to do it. It just doesn't work.
Well, there you go. You've heard it. You've heard it here maybe first.
Time for another round of Unpopular Opinions. I'm going to read out some potentially controversial cycling opinions and hot takes from around the internet. We'll debate them and decide if we agree or disagree. So the first one is sent in by Mo. He says, I live in Ottawa, Canada, which is a big cycling city with lots of well-off cyclists. I've heard fellow cyclists disparaging non-matching kit and especially bikes with non-matching wheels, group sets, components, etc. So, unpopular opinion, Frankenbikes are way cooler than matching off-the-rack try-hard rigs. Frankenkit too. Make the bike that works for you. Wear the kit that works for you.
I do very much agree with the sentiment of do whatever works for you, and I'm a big believer and passionate pusher of it. But for me personally,
You want to conform.
I like some things for me, I like to have in a particular way. I'm very particular about some things, but I would never push that onto other people.
See, I think, yeah, I agree with you completely on this one. Where I've got weird quirks. Like, I see you dress
You do
your
indeed.
kit with your wild color schemes, and I think, no, I could never do that. But I like the fact that you do it, but I would never do it.
Yeah.
I have weird things as well where I don't need to shave my legs riding gravel. It doesn't bother me in the slightest bit. If I'm riding in the road, I feel self-conscious if I have hairy legs. I'd have to shave them. For any kind of road event in summer, my legs have to be shaved. And that's the only time I would shave it.
Do you think that's because you're thinking about what other people are thinking about you? Or?
Yes, I think it's conditioning from when I was younger, racing on the road and riding the road was just done. And now with gravel, I don't care, which is really weird. Talking in bikes, yes, 2 different wheels will crack me. But then at the same time, we as a shop are really hard trying to push people to not stick to one group set. So for instance, if you're buying a group set from, I'm going to use SRAM as an example because to do this a lot, don't feel forced to buy a full red group set or a full force group set or a full rival group set. Some places is going to give you more benefit than others. So on my bike, I've got rival levers because in my opinion, they're exactly the same as the force levers. They feel the same. They weigh the same-ish. It's nothing that's going to make a difference. But then a rival cassette's a lot cheaper. It lasts really long, slightly heavier. Chain, I go for a more expensive chain because they last longer. And then chain set, depending on how important it is, the rival's really cheap, but it's heavier. Force is more expensive, but then lighter. So I like mixing things together. Mullet group sets.
Let's be honest. Your chain set you pick based on how you want it to look and how much you can afford. That's the whole point of a chain set, isn't it?
That's the thing also. Don't stick with chain. Don't buy a SRAM chain set. Buy something else.
Shimano.
If you like Shimano, I guess Shimano
on your SRAM group set.
If it works,
Do you mean that's the whole
and you
point?
like the look of
Frankenbike.
it, Frankenbike. But what I'm trying to say is,
Oh, I'm just testing him. I'm pushing to see what he's willing
personally,
to
I don't
say.
like the Shimano one. There's been a few issues in the past, so that's probably the one thing I wouldn't get from them. But what I'm getting at is, for instance, if you've got loads of money, buy a sturdy chain set, buy a titanium chain set, buy something nice if you want to. I've got an Ingrid chain set on one of my bikes. A lot of money. Don't know if it's worth it, but it looks nice. So,
What about wheels that don't match?
I can't go that far.
Tires that don't match. And one amber wall and one not amber
Tires
wall.
that don't match is something that I'm really against. But currently on my bike, I have tires that don't match because I've put a grippier tire on the front that I like from Michelin, and then I've got a Vittoria on the back. I think it doesn't bother me that it doesn't match. It bothers me more that one's grey and one's black.
I think the important thing is that, well, we do agree with this. And the important thing is do whatever you want to do and just don't push your opinions and views onto other people.
Exactly.
Yeah, you've got to be careful doing that the other way as well, because Mo's point is, let people have Frankenbikes if they want, but then he calls it an off-the-rack try-hard rig. That feels like a bit judgy as well, doesn't it?
Pot kettle kind of situation.
Yeah.
Like I said, I don't have an issue with other people doing it. Some stuff with myself, but that's just more of a being self-conscious about certain things, and which is wrong. But yeah.
It all perpetuates the elitism, though, doesn't it? You're doing it to fit in, and then people see you doing it, so then they do it to fit in, and it just perpetuates.
But then 83% of cycling is looking good. So,
and who's to say what that means?
But that's your own choice. It's not. Yeah, exactly.
Okay, we're all agreed, I think. So this one is from Sandy, who I'm going to assume is a guy. They say, why don't bibs have detachable straps? Bibs are comfy AF, but it is absurd to have to take a jacket and jersey off to have a shit. Why don't bib straps detach somehow to let the bottom come down without having to strip off? Why have clothing brands not innovated a way out of this? Why is shitability not considered a product advantage? So his unpopular opinion is bib shorts are an unnecessary optimization lifted from racing. It's like wearing a fireproof suit and helmet for driving to the shops. Yeah, super safe, but not convenient. And the reason I think this is probably a guy is that in the women's cycling space, there are loads of these. You can get drop tail bibs where the back just, the super, super stretchy straps and the back just pops down. You get magnets and clasps on straps. You can get zips across the bum. You get waisted shorts that obviously don't have straps, which is all to do with, women being able to pee, but shitting isn't ever really talked about. And I don't know, is it a problem?
I've never had this as a problem. I just don't see.
He just shits down his leg.
Yeah. It's got a pad there. It's basically a nappy, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, if you're on a bike ride and this becomes an issue in the middle of nowhere, like you've got bigger problems than the time it takes to take your bib shorts off. I'm
guessing he's, but potential like cafe stops.
They make it for female cyclists. It's been a thing for quite a while.
Yeah.
For years and years. I mean, I can remember this for like 10, 15 years ago. They started doing this. I just don't, if it was as big a problem, I think the industry would have started to make it other. And they've got the technology. They're doing it. They're doing the runs. But yeah.
Who's doing the runs?
I don't know. Could you not just buy a female bib short?
No, the pad's not going to be
Absolutely
great.
Not.
I actually totally see Sandy's point. If you look on your average cycling clothing maker and look at the amount of different products that are offered in the bib short category, there's probably loads. And one's a cargo and one's a race one and one's a core one. And they're like, why not offer that?
You've just given away the brand that you were looking at.
Well, yeah.
No, but I just think that they are. Well, that is one of the reasons cycling companies are struggling, because there's just too many variations of things that's just not needed. I knew of one that had black bib tights and then 3 different colors of prints on it.
Yeah.
For a small company. I'm not talking Rafa. And I was thinking to myself, like, why would you do that? Now you have to offer it in 3 different, just do more size runs and things like that. So more SKUs isn't better. On the other note of shorts, on bib shorts just for your racing, I would never, ever, ever cycle without bib tights or bib shorts, because the bib just keeps elastic off your bladder.
The bib part of it, the strap.
The bib part. It's more comfortable, keeps it up tighter. If you ride in the rain, you're going to have less sag, less chafing. For me, comfort-wise, it's a no-brainer. It has to be. I actually buy bibs based on the quality of the straps, not on the chamois and anything else.
So I kind of agree with Sandy a bit. And I think that shorts without a bib would be a much more usable product and take down a bit of the stigma around we need to have all of these things to be a cyclist. Because a short just feels normal. We all wear trousers and shorts and things.
No, see, I disagree with that, because shorts are available. You can buy shorts. There's loads of companies that do shorts for men.
There aren't.
There's loads.
There aren't. And if there are, they'll be generic stuff that was designed 30, 40 years ago and it's still the same
Are
design.
we talking ASOS money, serious money, or are we talking go to Star Cyclist down the road, more mile, they've got shorts. Loads, 15 quid a pair.
But I'm
Just
not
go buy
talking
one.
about that. I'm talking about comparable quality with comparable pad and comparable fabrics.
That'll be purely based on the companies that had them. ASOS used to do shorts. I don't know if they still do, because I don't look into it enough. But if they had shorts and they don't have it anymore, it'd be one reason only. People weren't buying them.
So I still disagree. And I think it is a good product. And part of it is, this is based off of, I actually have them on right now. We designed some waist shorts for Atticus for the women's range, and we didn't ever end up doing them for men's. However, what I am currently wearing is a women's pair of bib tights that don't have a bib strap.
No, not bib tights, just waisted tights.
Waist tights.
Yeah.
No
Yeah,
pad.
waist tights. The bib is the wrong word. Which have a really high waist. They're thermal lined. I cut the pad out and I just use them as running shorts. And I find them really comfortable. And we designed them to have a really high waist, silicone on them, and they just basically sit super high. So your historic concerns with the shorts are warranted, but there are ways around it, and that is that it's actually a torso wrap rather than sitting on
And
your
there's
waist.
ways around the bib. Just take your jacket off, take the straps off.
No, the product is already invented. It's the women's bib that has a magnet on the back or has a clasp on the back or just has stretchy shorts that just come down. Like these products are already invented. They're just not in the men's space.
Though. I don't want that. What I want is something which I can just chuck on that's got a pad on it
but how-
that doesn't have a bib. I don't want the bib bit of it. That's
Right.
the bit which stops me from using it. That's the bit when I go like, oh, I'm going to go for a bike ride. And then I go, oh, I can't be asked with all the faff of dressing up like a fireman. And instead, I'll just put a pair of shorts on and go for a run.
I've got the solution. Why don't you go out and start your own clothing company and make this? Do you know what I mean? Simple as that.
I'm done. No. I'll just go for a run instead.
Next one, Morgan says, unpopular opinion. Big group road rides are terrible. The idea is great, but the usual persona of a cyclist tends to lean towards elitist or introverted or both, and too many attendees lead to a miserable ride. The background on this, I live in Austin, Texas, and the biggest club in town has an average attendance of 300 to 400 people broken up into 4 groups.
What? That's outrageous.
No, it's not really that crazy.
100 people per group.
Nah, like, in South Africa, in Johannesburg, there's a club and they get over 1,000 people out on a weekend. They split
What?
them up in groups. The club that I grew up in on a Sunday regularly used to get 250 to 300 people on one ride, not split up into groups. So it's normal.
It is not normal.
That is not normal.
No, for England, it's not normal because your roads infrastructure just can't cope with it. Your roads are too narrow. You wouldn't be able to put that many people together. There's too many stops and things like that. But in bigger countries, it's perfectly normal. I don't agree with Morgan says. Obviously, I don't know the context. I don't know his experience, and he might have had a terrible experience with this club, and there might be everything he says, but 300 to 400 people still show up, meaning there's 300 to 400 people that like it.
Well, so he goes on. I will read the rest of his message out. It says, the idea is fantastic, but you can't control how people act within that kind of turnout. I've been riding for 16 years now, and I think a group ride is maximum enjoyment at 4 riders. The leaders of this club are amazing and welcome all fitness levels, but the attendees often still judge or don't see this as a time to socialise. Even worse, people tend to either turn away from cycling or become elitist themselves. Yeah, it's that cyclist to elitist pipeline.
I'm going to say something really unpopular now, but we have the same problem with our club that I think, which is good,
Which club?
bootleggers.
Okay.
Everybody wants all-inclusive. And all-inclusive is a great concept. I'm going to get loads of grief for this, but it doesn't work. Because if you've got, let's say on our club ride, we've got 25 lads out there that ride every week and they know each other and they all ride at about 17 miles an hour. They do their 80 kilometers. They know exactly what they're doing. It's all fine. And then you get somebody wanting to join, which is excellent, wanting to get into the sport, and they struggle to ride at that pace. Now, all of a sudden, the whole club has to ride at 14 miles an hour, for example. I'm just using random numbers. This you can change. The 25 guys that regularly go have to change their entire ride for the one person. It's good to get people into the sport, but to some extent, some of them, they've gone out there, that's what they like to do, they ride, and now they have to compromise. And we do a thing of, obviously, we're making sure people are safe and fine, but we generally would say to somebody, it's probably best if you turn off. And that causes grief, but at the same time, I don't think clubs should do everything for everybody. I think clubs should focus on what they do and get all the different clubs that's a different space for you to ride.
I actually completely agree with this.
Yeah, that isn't controversial at all.
No, I think I would say there is more of a problem with a club if they were to say they were all-inclusive
That's what
and then not actually be set up for that. So, for example, I guess inclusivity can mean different things to different people. If it's about riding pace, if you are going to offer all paces welcome, then what you really need is to have enough support and ride leaders to be able to split the speeds appropriately and have one of those rides be a no-drop ride. You can't put all of them together and then expect everyone to slow down. For example, the inclusivity thing might be that you have a women's only group. The inclusivity thing might be that you welcome people who are minorities in the group. And I think you have to then at least have your ride leaders have some kind of like training in how to deal when issues arise. You know, if for example, you were like, we're all inclusive, we are a safe space to women, and then all of a sudden someone comes to you with a sexual assault accusation or whatever, like, while that isn't your job to fix that issue, you need to know how to appropriately handle that issue. There's loads of things that crop up with a very high umbrella term of inclusivity. If someone came to you and said someone's being Islamophobic or someone's being racist, like, how do you handle that? You know what I mean? Like, you have to have people in charge who know the appropriate channels to go down.
Agreed.
And if you're not prepared to do that, do not say to people you are a safe space for them. Like, I would rather know if you're going to say we only ride at 28 kph, if you can't keep up, you will be dropped. Although I'd be like, oh, that's not me. I would rather know and not turn up. I would rather know and not turn up.
That's what I say. No, I agree completely with. When I was talking about all inclusive, I mean about rideability.
Yeah.
I mean, the bootleggers as a club have kicked quite a few people out where they just don't gel with the rest of the group or say controversial things and stuff. It's just, mate, just go away. We don't want you riding with us. We're kind of bizarrely not very nice about it, but it's just, it just doesn't work. If you're going to be, it's essentially a no knobhead kind of rule in the club, which is bad, but it's, get rid.
I do think there is a difference as well. You can say, we are doing this distance at about this pace range. Anyone can join us on that. Yeah. So it's not always just about any ability you can join.
Yeah.
Because sometimes a club feels like they wouldn't welcome you even if you could ride it as well.
Yeah, totally.
So there's different
levels to it.
Yeah, it is a very complex scenario. What my first thought of, or especially as you pointed out in the UK, if you had 100 people in a group ride in this country, as amazing as that sounds,
it would be havoc, wouldn't it?
Chaos.
It would be dangerous, I
dangerous.
think.
I wouldn't have the confidence that there would be sufficient ride leaders spread out through that group to manage it.
I know, it would be sketchy. I think the other part of his point is, I feel like he's talking about people. He's talking about feeling judged. He's talking about people not there to socialise, and I guess like having an elitist element. I think like there is definitely this connotation with cyclists that it is very elitist, and I do think that does exist, and I think that you guys have even shown that you are susceptible to feeling like you need to shave your legs and stuff because you have experienced that. But also, like, I think you just get heads everywhere in life. You just kind of, you're never going to get on with everyone, and just because you ride a bike doesn't mean you're going to get on.
Do you have an unpopular opinion? If so, we want to hear them. Send yours to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk and you might feature on a future episode. Next up, Fluff Up of the Week.
Right, I'm going to do a preemptive Fluff Up of the Week because there is a small chance that this podcast might not go out on Thursday. And I think it will, but if it hasn't and you're now listening at the weekend or something, then sorry. Because what I didn't realise is that Jimmy and I are booked in to go down to London tomorrow morning for a charity event tomorrow evening with Garmin. The
Action Medical Research's Cycle Sport Auction Dinner.
Yes, and Garmin are one of the partners?
They are, yes.
Yes, so we have been invited down to that. We are going, but that means I have approximately this afternoon to edit this podcast in full and also get packed for tomorrow.
Stop talking then, let's get on with it.
Exactly, yeah. So even if it ends up going out, it's still a fluff up because it's going to be a nightmare afternoon. So
we're only doing a 15-minute podcast.
Yeah, exactly. So let's wrap it up.
With that in mind, should we head over to Listeners Takeover?
Yes, let's. So Adam says, "Hi gang, love the podcasts. Your last one got me thinking about cheaper stuff. I'd be interested to know, especially from Nick, if he thinks the push towards disc brakes and electronic shifting is part of the reason bike shops are struggling. I'm reasonably new to cycling and picked up a 105 rim brake bike on sale. It feels like discs and electronic shifting is so much more expensive than the mechanical gears and rim brake alternatives. Do you think as shops have less and less rim brake options, it's putting people off getting into the sport? Sadly, not everyone will have seen your great reviews of the Tri-Band stuff. Really interested to hear your take on it all.
I think he's right for the wrong reasons. Yes, disc brake's more expensive when you initially purchase it, but your wheels last considerably longer. So in the long run, that becomes cheap because your rims don't weigh out. You can just replace your disc brake rotors.
So you're saying rim brake wheels, because it's an actual braking surface, at some point that wheel is worn out based on how much braking you're doing.
And like when carbon wheels started coming out, I've seen people go down massive hills, panic, just hold the brakes in, delaminate the wheels. That's your wheel gone. Where with the disc brake, your rotor will just get slightly cooked and you can fix all of that. Everything in the industry has become a lot more expensive. Electronic group sets become expensive, but you can still get fairly inexpensive group sets. I think everybody is forgetting that it's the whole marketing machine that's kind of convincing people to buy more expensive stuff, buy Dura-Ace, buy all these crazy things where you can still get less expensive group sets. The downside is this is always going to happen. It has to happen. I mean, otherwise we'd still be stuck on single speed bikes or penny farthings. Like new technology is going to come out and things are going to evolve and get better. It's just one of those things. I think the industry is struggling more because of the COVID hangover.
The single speed thing is an interesting one because presumably there would have been early bikes, flip-flop gears, whatever you want to call them, early Tour de France bikes. All bikes had one gear, and then someone invented, I think, would it have been
2 gears?
Colnago that invented ReaMX?
No, Campagnolo. Not Colnago. Colnago do bikes.
Oh, sorry, Campag.
Campag invented the quick release skewer.
So then you go, when that tech came out, it must have been way more expensive than not. And I guess we're just experiencing that again with other stuff. Does the tech help justify the price point? In my opinion, probably yes.
Yeah, well, things become more expensive and more difficult to manufacture. And
does it need to change? And this is why people get upset. Do bikes need to get better? The answer is no. And that's why I think people get upset with it.
Yeah, but I mean, I like electronic group sets. It just shifts nice. There's nothing wrong with cables. They work perfectly fine. In my opinion, electronic just works slightly better. But it comes at a massive price point. So with gravel, we all ride electronic group sets at the moment over here, but a GRX mechanical group set is still an excellent group set, and for a fraction of the cost.
Cool. Okay, John says, when I started cycling this year, I got myself a second-hand Specialized Alley to see how I got on and if I enjoyed it. I can say that I now have the bug for cycling and I'm looking for an upgrade. I considered getting a new bike before Christmas and making the most of the end-of-line 2024 bikes. With the bikes getting discounted, would this be the best time, or would the prices drop again at the back end of January, February? I have about £1,200 to £1,600 to spend, but I'm the type of bloke that is tight with money and would hate it if I bought one and the prices dropped again. Lastly, would you know which shops do the best deals and maybe allow me a test ride? I think it's madness that places expect you to buy before you try on a proper road and not a trainer. That is madness. I agree with that.
It does seem very odd, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But I feel like even when I was a kid, you used to actually test ride a bike.
Well, yeah, I remember buying a Specialized Ruby from the concept store in Kingston or something, and they let me take it out. But you guys were saying that they probably wouldn't let you do that anymore. Yeah,
well, our shop, we wouldn't do it because all our bikes are custom built for the customer. So I'm not building a bike just so somebody can try it. But also,
of course,
there's loads of variables. I think it becomes really difficult because you get all these reviewers from the magazines and things like that. Just changing the tires on a bike gives you a massive difference.
Right.
So it's difficult because the bike brands are bringing out too many bikes. And you'd have to have one of every single variant to test ride, because you could test one and then buy a different model and it could ride completely different. It could be purely based on the change of tires or the change of saddle or the handlebar tape. So, yeah, unfortunately, it's...
So actually, is what you're saying actually that as long as you know your size, that you can retrospectively make comfort upgrades to the bike anyway.
Yes, but the other thing is, John's, from my perspective, from a bike shop, so I am biased. John's statement over here, reading this entire thing, is I wouldn't let him test ride a bike in my shop. And it sounds harsh, but the reason is I think bike shops got their backs up against the onlines and things like this. So you get all these bikes and you stock it. It's an investment. The brands aren't giving them to you for free. So John comes in. He's just looking for a deal. Online shopping, everybody wants to try it out. So he rings up, comes to you, tries this bike out. So you've got a demo bike you've had to buy, which you're going to have to sell at a loss eventually, or hopefully. So he rides around and then just goes on the internet and searches for the cheapest one and buys it from there. And that shop's some online shop that doesn't even have a physical presence, and they're just working a 5% margin. So it's a bit of a, I would say, is going about it the wrong way around for several things. Firstly, build a relationship with your local bike shop, and they will most likely help you out. But I've lent people my bike to test ride, or if we have one in the shop, or I've actually once even gotten a customer to lend somebody else a bike just so they could have a spin on it, if it's possible. But going that extra mile, you want to almost be sure that you're still going to get the sale. The other thing is, eventually, we've got a list. I can show most of my customers. I can see over the years how much discount they've gotten from us. Because I've even gotten to a point now where I log on the system every time. If you come in and said, Nick, my gears are slightly out, I quickly whip it in the stand, tweak them, has no charge most of the time. But then I'll still put it through as a 0 so that I can note, like, that's a free where some random person would have had to pay to get their gears adjusted or their tubeless topped up. Or,
but is that just you that's doing that, or is that all shops?
I'm on loads of forums and there's loads of shops. I mean, the funny thing is with the bike shops is, like, we all have on Facebook, there's about 6 or 7, well, there's loads more, but I follow about 6 or 7, and everybody posts about their woes and things happening and to find out what everybody else is doing. And it's a common trend. But if you supported one shop, yes, initially your first purchase could be quite expensive, but eventually, when they realize you're a loyal customer, they'll try and help you out. I have people don't ask for discount, I still give them discount. I could sell them the bike at full price, but it always just kind of, because you build that relationship.
I get what you're saying. Play the long game.
Yes. On that £1,200 to £1,600 budget, unfortunately, I don't think he's going to get a better bike than the LA. He'd be much better off buying upgrades for the current bike. And essentially, so spend, let's say, 1,600 quid on as much as you can. New wheels, a new saddle, handlebar stem, seat post, or a group set, whichever way. And then the current bike will be better. And then in about 2 or 3 or 4 years' time, if he's got a bit more money, upgrade the bike. Is much better than just buying a complete new bike.
Doesn't upgrade the frame.
Yeah. Split your bike down in 4 component groups. So you've got group set, you've got finishing kit, which is a handlebar stem, seat post, saddle. You've got your frame, and you've got your wheels and tires. And just essentially pick some of it and upgrade it down the line of building towards your dream bike. Because if you did this every few years, with time, you can have an unbelievable bike. Where if every single 3 years, your partner or your financial situation allows you to only spend £500 or 1,000 or 2,000 or 3,000, every time you're just going to end up with the same level of bike. So that's, we always try and encourage, yes, if you don't have a bike, you need to buy a full bike. But after that, always try and convince people to upgrade your bike instead of buying a new bike.
Cool. I guess the final point would be that if you are still intent on making the most of end-of-line bikes and getting a discount, the thing is there's no guarantee that there is going to be a cheaper price in January, February, and you might find that your size sells out. I would say if you see a deal that you really want, just buy the bike. Like there is a potential that it's going to get cheaper, but not necessarily. Like the things with sales and businesses is sales. The people put ad hoc sales on when it makes sense for their cash flow. Either they've got too much stock, they need to shift some. They have specific sizes that aren't selling or a specific colorway that hasn't done well. So there is no guarantee that what you want will become cheaper or will be available for sale still at that point, because everyone might be thinking the same as you and getting it now. So I don't know. I just kind of think if you see the bike, get the bike. Some people, if you buy it for a certain price and then it gets cheaper within a certain amount of time, if you email them, they will refund you the difference. That they are under no obligation to do so. But some people will do things as a goodwill gesture. But if you see your dream bike for a good price, then I would say just get the bike.
I'm a big believer of then when you do that, don't look.
Don't look. Exactly. Exactly.
I always used to say this back in the days of working in finance, is the amount of people which would buy a stock or sell a stock, and then a couple of months later it would move in the opposite direction and they lost out on some money. I'm like, why have you looked? Just like you made the correct decision in that moment. So it doesn't matter what the other consequences of it are. Don't look. Enjoy. If you can afford it and you want it, enjoy it.
Yeah, but also the idea of actually upgrading the existing frame is not a bad call.
You're always going to win more by doing that. And
Caveat, unless it's rim brakes. Move on.
Sorry, last thing's always keep your olds. Well, no, because some of the rim brake stuff you still like.
Don't want to get into it.
Keep your old components, because eventually, when you've done it enough, you'll have enough to build your old bike back up. And you can either use it as winter bike or sell it.
That is actually true. You've done that with a lot of our bike shit.
I'm
Definitely.
currently this week, I've got a spreadsheet of stuff, and I'm building 4 bikes by getting 3 new frame sets and 1 group set.
Yeah.
Everything else, handlebar stem, seat posts, I've just rejigged all the things. Bottom brackets even.
Absolute Triggs boom going on there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, that is the end. We want your emails. So send us your questions, your stories, suggestions, and other bike-related stuff to wildonespodcast@cademedia.co.uk.
And that is all for this week. Thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed it. Make sure you are following and or subscribing so you don't miss out on the next episode.
Goodbye.
Thank you and see you next week.
Yeah, thank you, Nick, for joining us again.
No worries. Good luck with the editing.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.